Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Sandy Smith, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Colonel Frank Colley. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Raymond Scott Evatt. Raymond Evatt was born on the 5th of March 1896 in Maitland, New South Wales. Known as Ray, he was one of 8 children born to publican John Ashmore Hamilton Evatt and his wife Jane. Ray received his schooling at the Fort Street Boys High School, where he was a member of the Cadets program. On completion of his schooling, he studied chemistry at a technology college and became a renowned sportsman on Sydney's North Shore, playing cricket and rugby league. At the outbreak of the First World War in 1914, Ray was working for the Colonial Sugar Refining Company and living at Millers Point in Sydney. Ray Evatt enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 15th of March 1915. He was assigned to A Company of the 20th Battalion and commenced a short period of training in Australia. He embarked for active service from Sydney on the 25th of June, sailing on board the troop ship Berrima. Private Evatt and his comrades arrived in the Gallipoli Peninsula in August 1915. His battalion played a largely defensive role over the months that followed. Like many who suffered from the difficult conditions of life at the front, Evatt eventually contracted dysentery and was evacuated from the peninsula for treatment in Egypt. By the time he had recovered from his illness, plans to abandon the Gallipoli campaign were already underway. Evatt remained in Egypt for the rest of 1915, rejoining his comrades in January 1916. After a short period of training, Evatt embarked for the Western Front in March and arrived in the French city of Marseille after a week-long voyage. From there, his unit was immediately sent north to the Belgian border, which had once been a site of heavy fighting, but was now comparatively quiet. Evatt and his comrades entered the trenches for the first time in April 1916, and in May was the first Australian battalion to be raided by the Germans on the Western Front. Following this attack, the 20th Battalion alternated between periods of training and duty in the trenches, during which time Evatt was promoted to Company Sergeant Major. In late July, the 20th Battalion was sent to the Somme. It was here that Evatt took part in his first major battle of the war, when Allied units attacked enemy positions to recapture the village of Pozières and the high ground nearby. He was wounded during the advance, but narrowly avoided being sent to hospital. In August, following the fighting around Mouquet Farm, Evatt received a commission and was made second lieutenant before his unit withdrew to the Belgian sector for a period of rest. The 20th Battalion returned to France later that year, just in time to spend a bitterly cold winter fighting on the front lines in November. Evatt's unit was involved in an attack on the village of Fleur, fighting under freezing conditions which have been remembered as amongst the worst ever encountered by Australian forces. During the attack, Evatt was wounded for a second time, necessitating his evacuation to England for treatment. En route to the hospital, he received his third promotion, rising to the rank of First Lieutenant. He was later awarded the Military Cross for his actions during the attack. Evatt's return to the front in March 1917 was marked by German strategic withdrawal to the fortified Hindenburg Line. Before his unit's attack on the village of Lagnacourt in April, Evatt was selected to undertake bombing training in England. He rejoined the rest of his battalion in Belgium in July 1917, having qualified as a bombing instructor. Within 2 months of his return, Evatt was drawn back into the firing line when the 20th Battalion took part in a major attack on enemy positions at Menin Road, near Ypres. Following a major artillery barrage, the 1st and 2nd Australian Divisions advanced towards enemy lines in the early hours of the morning of the 20th of September 1917. They came under heavy fire as German troops tried to resist their advance. Allied units were at a significant disadvantage, having to cover more than 1,500 metres to get to their objective, while coming under fire from enemy pillboxes and occasionally being hit by their own guns. Though their objective was eventually taken, it came at a cost of more than 5,000 Australian casualties. Among the dead was Lieutenant Ray Evatt, who was killed by enemy machine gun fire while leading his platoon. He was buried near where he was killed. However, the location of his grave was lost during subsequent fighting. Today, he is commemorated on the Menin Gate Memorial in Ypres, among more than 50,000 others who have no known grave. Lieutenant Ray Evatt was 21 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A group photograph, including Lieutenant Evatt, is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Raymond Scott Evatt, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.